Most therapy practices are built around sessions, but real transformation doesn't happen in a 1 hour block. It happens in everything that follows. Welcome back to the Practice Pulse. I'm Nancy Margrit, founder of Optima Pro AI, where we help healthcare and wellness businesses scale through smarter systems, better operations, and AI, all while retaining the human touch. Today's episode is one I'm especially excited about because we're diving into a space that impacts not just businesses, but families and kids in a very meaningful way. I'm joined by Brian Keene, founder of Pure Hearts Therapy, a pediatric therapy practice focused on occupational therapy, speech therapy, physical therapy, and home health services. What makes Brian's approach different is that it's rooted in a neurodiversity affirming model, focusing on strengths instead of deficits and meeting children where they are. Brian started his practice back in 2020 and has grown it from a solo operation into a team based model designed to create deeper, more lasting outcomes for families. So, Brian, thank you so much for being on the show. We'll
Thank you for
get
having me.
Absolutely. We'll get started with start at the beginning. So tell us what led you to start Pure Hearts Therapy and what gap you saw in the market that wasn't being addressed.
All right. So starting it wasn't like a clear thing. I know we always try to think about these things as just happen in one thing, but it's kind of a couple of things to simplify it. When I started my practice or when I started getting into this field after graduating from school, I was looking at therapy and where I want to work. And I was looking at clinics specifically. And I happen to live in South Phoenix, and it's kind of an area that's not really highly served. So I was looking for a clinic to work at, and every clinic I was looking to work at was 30 plus minutes out. And as I kind of reflected on that, I was like, wow, these parents have to drive this far for therapies. And some parents may have multiple therapies or multiple kids who need therapy. So if you think about it, they may have a couple times a week, where they have to drive 30 plus minutes there, 30 plus minutes out. That's hours out of their week just gone. So then I was like, well, it's a win-win. If I do home health, I'm not driving 30 plus minutes and it helps my parents whom I'll be working with. So that's why reason why I dived into that home health model. And then also I really love that you're working directly with the parents in their homes. Sometimes in a clinic, and I'm not saying the clinic's bad, clinic has its pros too.
Right.
But sometimes in a clinic, a lot of times the parents are on the outside realistically they should be in, but they're on outside, but when you're working directly in home health, you get to know the family, you get to see those natural dynamics and how things are happening. Because sometimes in the clinic, things are happening, but at home, it looks completely different. So because of that, I was able to kind of see, okay, this is how things are going here. And I really love how that works. And you become extended member of the family. So that's one reason I got home health, and then neurodiversity affirming kind of came a little bit more natural through one through training, but also just certain approaches is like, we got to embrace kids for who they are. I've never been like authoritative sort of person where he's like, do what I say. It's like, let's work as a team.
That's great. I love that. Yeah. And I'm sure like having therapy in the home too is more comfortable and natural for the child. It feels less, especially in those initial sessions where it's less like kind of who are you? What is all of this about? So it probably helps in the initial sessions, especially for children to have a more safe feeling.
I would say yes and no.
Oh, really?
In a certain way, initially, in a certain way, home is like their safe place. So they aren't expecting to work. But if we make therapy fun and they start to enjoy us and you build that rapport, we can't go in there and start making demands. But if we start to like mirror them, do
Hmm.
things they like to do, if they like dinosaurs or playing dinosaurs with them, they're like, oh, I like this guy. This person's
Right.
kind of fun. And then that rapport is built, and then you kind of got that buy-in. It doesn't feel like, hey, I'm going to this place to work. Oh, this guy's coming, he's coming with fun.
Right. That's a great point because it's not a magic key just having it in the home. You have to really engage and meet kids where they are, which is what your entire model is built off of. So you mentioned that traditional therapy often only provides about 1 hour a week, but the real progress happens outside of that. So where do you feel the system is currently falling short for families in regards to that?
Well, it's tricky because every family's doing the best they can. Parents got a lot on their plate. And then you add the complexities of raising anyone with any extra needs or anything like that. It makes things a little bit more complicated. So I feel for good for the parents, all parents involved, right? It's a big task. But I think what maybe a lot of people don't realize, or a lot of families don't realize, is 1 hour a week. That's great. We're going to get some stuff done. We're build work with the kid. But if you're able to take maybe just one tool or strategy to work throughout the week and work on that with your child, that makes a big difference. I've had a few families where some are like completely on the other side. Like I bring some activities to therapy, like I bring a Lego set or something new, and I'd have a parent go and buy it that week. And then I bring something and buy it that week. I'm like, hey, you don't need to buy everything. I'm glad that you're like involved. Like you don't need to buy everything. Uh, the ones who are really like involved like that, I see the biggest difference. Like with speech, I had one client I was working with, and she was kind of just echoing a few words, but mom was kind of implementing some of the things I brought and seeing engagement because she didn't want to play with anything at all. She's like, she don't play with toys, she don't do this. But once we started bringing these things in, and mom kind of understood what I was doing, the process, how I was bonding with her, um, I saw a big improvement. So the ones who I think are not that you got to do a lot, but implement little things, I think definitely make a difference.
That's awesome. So, as you've kind of grown your practice, where are things starting to feel harder than expected? Whether that's scaling a team or delivering consistency, supporting families at a deeper level, what kind of has felt harder than expected, and then how have you ever overcome that?
Wow, there's a lot. There's a lot of different things. I don't know if I could point to one, but I think the big picture answer to me is leadership. And I still don't got it all figured out. But now that it's not just me, it's like, how do I manage people? Right. And that means my admin staff, that means therapists, parents were always part of the picture, but like, and I only like the word manage, but how do you work with people when things happen? And there's things that happen at a higher level that I really got to think about and reflect on and say, okay, this is our approach here. And it's kind of led me to creating SOPs. And one of my mentors, her name is Katie. She said a long time ago, and I heard it, and I was like, okay, I need to do it. And I kind of put it on the back burner, but now it's like in full set. Every time something happens, I think about, okay, I need to make a SOP for this
Hmm.
or a standard for this so that things are standard across the board. Otherwise, you have inconsistencies and people like inconsistencies, just like our kids we work with. People like things to be predictable and
Hmm.
structure, and that builds safety. Same thing with the staff and everyone I work with. Try to make things as predictable as possible and people feel more comfortable.
I love that. That's a great point. I'm a huge SOPs fan. I just actually a couple of days ago, I we were something came up in a mastermind group I'm in, and we were on a text thread, and I was like, "Do we have an SOP for that? We gotta have
Yeah.
something." Like, because it is so important to create that consistency because it takes away the variability and the decision making. Because I think as entrepreneurs and business owners, we can often suffer from decision fatigue, and it really kind of takes that out and allows you to focus more on really your client and how are we helping our clients or our patients. So I think that's an amazing little golden nugget that you dropped right there to have some strong SOPs. And I also like that you're talking about not necessarily managing people but coordinating people, because you do really have to make sure that personalities are working well together and people are doing the things that they're expected to do and know what they're expected to do, and that takes some finesse for sure. So those were great. Awesome. So let's talk a little bit about your core model. So walk me through your model. How does Pure Hearts Therapy actually deliver care differently than like a traditional therapy practice?
Okay, the biggest thing that kind of separates us, and I kind of mentioned this a little bit earlier, is that home-based model. And then it's kind of like, well, I'm gonna start with the client side because there's a therapist side and client side, right? So for the home-based client side, it's really just honing in on that home-based model and community-based model. So, typically in a clinic, you're going to go to that clinic, you have like maybe an hour session, and we work on whatever goals it might be. Right, but what I really love about home health is that it's very flexible with goals and where we can do therapy. So, even though it's home health, if we have a child, I say child, we have adults too, but if we have a client we're working with and they want to work on money skills, you can work on it in a home, but then you can try to work on that carryover where, hey, next session we're going to be at the grocery store. Or we get more buy in. What's their favorite store? that they want to go to. Maybe they like the dollar store because certain balloons they want to get or their favorite thing. Let's meet at the dollar store today and we're going to buy that dinosaur and exchange money. Now, today, that may not be the most relevant goal because people use cards, but you can kind of use that in different
Right.
contexts, right? So maybe we're going to the park, or more recently, what we've been implementing more is aquatic therapy. Most kids love water. And also, from a safety standpoint, our autistic youth and neurodivergent youth are at highest risk for drowning. I forget the stats, but
Oh.
it's huge compared to the neurotypical counterparts. So, with that, I can go to the pool. If a family has a community pool or pool at their house, we could work on therapy sessions in the pool where we're not only working on safety, pool safety, but we're also working on like regulation skills and strengthening, upper body strengthening. So I love the flexibility of the home health model where you can be in different places. And then from a therapist standpoint, what I try to empower is most of our therapists are part time, some are full time, but most of them are part time. And I really just try to give them as much autonomy as possible and give them freedom to be themselves, right? Some people are silly. I say, hey, if you're a silly person, be silly. Arts and craft, bring that to the table because kids are going to feed off your energy.
Hmm.
When I had a therapist, she didn't end up working with us, but I thought it was so cool. She was into magic and she incorporates magic into her therapy session because that's what she does. So the kids are, I'm sure they're thrilled. They're like, wow, magic
Yeah.
tricks. Let me learn these magic tricks. So from a therapist standpoint, I try to really encourage them to be themselves and really embrace their personality, just like we do with our kids, right? We don't want to
Hmm.
force them into box, but be yourself, right? Just like what our kids would be. And then from a home health perspective, just I love the flexibility of that schedule and working things out the way that works best for the family.
That's awesome. Those sound some really cool different techniques that you're able to tap into by shifting locations outside of the traditional model. And I think it's a great idea to tap into your therapist's likes and their skills because you really create not just a great experience for the child, but also for the therapist and a great place to work because it makes it fun when you can incorporate something that you're interested in. So that's really, really cool. Let's talk a little bit about the neurodiversity affirming approach that you really focus on. So, this is focusing on strengths instead of deficits. And how does that change the experience for both the child and the family?
Good question. So let me backtrack a little bit. And I want to say, I think we can all kind of relate to this. We live in a world where we're all adapting, right? We're all adapting to be the best versions of ourselves and fit into this world, right? Right. So you might go to work and you might dress a little way to fit the part. Or you might talk a different way when you're around different people, right? There's nothing wrong with it. It's called masking. A lot of us do that from time to time. But there's a certain point where we do it so much we kind of forget who we are, right? We're just kind of like, wait, who am I? We lose ourselves. So, and one thing I really love about working with kiddos, usually from the kiddos, are really themselves, right? They're going to tell you how you feel. They're going to be themselves until the world comes and says, hey, you need to act this way. You need to be this way. Don't talk loud. There's certain things we've all kind of received it as it is, right? And then we kind of change who we are. We kind of change the essence of who we are. I think it's good to grow, but we don't want to like change who we are. So with that neurodiversity affirming approach, it's really embracing kids for who they are, right? Especially with our autistic individuals and neurodivergent individuals, like certain things don't necessarily come more natural to them, or it's kind of like peculiar, right? Like eye contact is one that always gets brought up, where it's like I can listen or they can listen, anyone can listen without making eye contact. Maybe I focus better when I'm looking up, you know,
Hmm.
things like that. Or some people stim. Actually, everyone stims, right? When we're recording together, I might be moving. This helps me regulate. I might be kicking my feet. It helps me regulate or chewing on gum, right? This helps
Hmm.
us regulate. But with a lot of times with our autistic individuals, it looks a little bit more heightened. It may look like flapping. It may look like some rocking, right? Nothing wrong with that. That's just how they operate in the world and help them to be more focused. So with our neurodiversity affirming approach, we embrace that. There's nothing wrong with that. You aren't hurting anybody. If it's hurting anybody, that's different. We can kind of look at alternative sort of behaviors that might help. But it's like embracing who they are in this world, but also becoming straight faced. So I kind of went on that, embrace who they are, but strength based. So I look at we're all different bodies, we're all different individuals. You might be great at reading, but hate math. Um, or you might be good at basketball and hate soccer. I don't know.
Hmm.
But if all we did was hone in on the things you're bad at and hate, you probably would not really want to work with me. If we're going to do math every day, you're like, I hate math. So we're guilty of doing that with our kids. We're focusing on their deficits or the things
Hmm.
they're not good at. Like that's not fun. That's going to make things better. So if you hone in on the things they love, such as basketball or the reading side of that, we can still work on other goals or embrace other goals by going with the strength base. If you love dinosaurs, let's get dinosaurs. Let's work with dinosaurs. We can work on counting with dinosaurs. We can work on dressing with dinosaurs. OTs are creative. I'm speaking for OTs, but I'm sure it will be creative and finding ways to work on goals with someone's strength. So that neurodiversity affirming is really being strength based, accepting people for who they are.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think it's so important and really helps you create a safe space for kids to focus on what you do want to focus on in OT and speech therapy if they're able to really be themselves in that space. That's awesome. So you tell us a little bit about what you've tried so far to expand impact beyond that 1 hour session and where do you still feel some friction in making that happen consistently?
Yes, this is easier said than done. So what we've been trying to do with some of my therapists, one of her names is DePauli, is offer parent workshops. That one's tricky. We kind of done that a couple times, but the hard thing is parents have busy schedules. Sometimes if they don't have someone to watch their child, they may not be able to make it. We've also done a few webinars, and we thinking that might be the route to kind of stick with is doing webinars just to add that extra resources, right? Extra support. Where sometimes parents have these questions that kind of keep them up at night, like, oh, this is going on. And having the ability to ask someone directly and really work through that, I think is huge. So parent webinars is one way we're trying to expand past that 1 hour a week. And then or not this podcast, but I have a podcast called Autism Family Resource Podcast, and I interview several people from all different backgrounds, right? So I maybe have lived experience from autistic individuals that I had on one. Most recently, Mandy, she's been good. She's really awesome. She's an autism advocate, and I love talking with her. We had quite a few conversations. I had an autistic dad who created a dad social club on there. We had a chiropractor who talked about gut health. We had a dietitian who talked about, autism, gut health, and feeding. So there's been people from so many different realms. Another dad who talked about community safety and Scan Me Home, and he created a little scan system if a child got lost who might be not speaking or can't say where their home is. Someone can scan that code. So it's really cool to have people from very different realms speak on topics to best support their kids. So for me, that's a good way where hopefully parents take something from that. And I also learn as well. And anyone else listening learns as well and is able to give back and give more feedback to their families that's in a very diverse way, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I think that's awesome. I think having those extra resources is really going above and beyond for the families that you serve. I love the idea of like a webinar workshop because you can also do like recordings and people can listen or watch on their own timelines. And your podcast sounds awesome. We'll definitely make sure that we note that in the show notes so that people can find that. So that very cool. What do you think most people misunderstand about what actually creates progress in therapy?
Restate that for me. I'm kind
Sure.
of processing that.
Yeah. What do you think most people misunderstand? Sorry, it helps if I say it correctly. What do you think most people misunderstand about what actually creates progress in therapy?
Ooh, okay. I think there's some various ways to go about this again. So I could say personally as a therapist, a lot of therapists, teachers, people in this kind of background, we're definitely high risk for caregiver burnout. So I'm going to speak from the therapist standpoint as well. I guess I can only speak for me, but I think other therapists resonate with that. Sometimes as therapists, we want to see our kids succeed or whoever we work with succeed. And sometimes we put that on ourselves. And if our kids aren't reaching their goals, man, it's all me, right? We don't necessarily say it, but we feel it, right? It's like, and that's good, right? It's a natural stress that's good because we're going back to drawing board. Okay, am I taking the right approach? Am I using the right things? Do I need to think about this differently? So that part, that's good. But I think I have to remind myself regularly that I'm not necessarily directly responsible for the goals. That's whoever we work with, that's on them. We're there to support them. So, and that's also going with that neurodiversity affirming kind of mindset as well. We aren't necessarily the ones who make the change. The child is in charge of the change and the family's in charge of the change. And we're there to support them in any way we can. So that is one thing from a therapist standpoint of that. Now, I think from the family standpoint, realistic and unrealistic, there's such a spectrum of what this looks like. I think I work with some families where they don't necessarily, I'm trying to think of how I word this, expectations, right? So
Mhm.
sometimes families have certain expectations of their kids, sometimes way too high and sometimes way too low, you know? So what I mean by this, because I know that it sounds kind of weird, but let me give more context is I've had some families where their expectations, in my opinion, were way too low. And sometimes parents will do too much for their child, not giving them the opportunity to grow. So I might say like, "Hey, can" we'll just say Lil Johnny because everyone hears that. "Lil Johnny, can Lil Johnny dress himself?" Is like, "No." I was like, "Okay, well, let me see, let me observe," you know, and or I'll kind of ask more follow-up questions, and they're kind of doing too much for them. So
Mhm.
a lot of times we gotta let our clients struggle. Because struggle and failure is where the growth happens for all of us, right? Whenever we did something hard, in a moment, we're a little bit frustrated, but then we gain the skills from there. If you think about any job, sports, you know, all those reps you
Mhm.
put in, if you played sports, all the reading you did, that helped you become a better person. So sometimes as parents, we kind of do too much for our kids. So there's kind of that one side of the spectrum. But then there's also the other side of that too, where sometimes we put too many demands on our kids. So I think about the last time maybe I went to physical therapy and I had a home program and I gave them a list. They gave me this much stuff to do and they expect me to do it 5 times a week. And I'm busy, you know, I don't have time to do this. So just giving someone one, two, a couple little things to work on is a lot bigger or a lot better. So I think as therapists, don't give our families too much. That's overwhelming. And then also I like to stress to the parents, don't give your kids too much. You're going to overstress them. Sometimes they're like 5 therapies a week and then they're doing cheer and then they're doing practice. And it's like, that's exhausting. They're a kid. They gotta be bored.
Yeah.
They gotta explore, you know? So I think that I don't know if I answered the question, but that's kind of what comes to my mind.
No, I think you answered it perfectly. Those are great, those are great little, anecdotal stories that you gave. Like, it really helped kind of bring it together for me, and I can totally see that happening. Like, I know I struggled with that early on with my son, giving him too much. Like, he is like I need 1 to 2 things at a time, like, tell me 1 to 2 things at a time to do. Uh, having them overwhelmed can be difficult. And then to your point about not giving them enough or giving them the autonomy to grow, I think that's so important as parents to come in and really give them the space to grow and learn to do these things. And like you said, be uncomfortable and push through and struggle a little bit because that is where they learn new skills. And that's how you actually build confidence. And so if we don't allow our kids to have that struggle and push through that, they don't build that confidence on their own. So I think that's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll caveat on that is that I always use the term, and I don't know where it came from, maybe from school, but it's a just right challenge. And I kind of just like to say, whenever I work with kids, it's a just right challenge. I would think parents know their kids the best, but as a therapist, as I work with kids, I know my triggers, or I know when my kids kind of get a little bit overwhelmed. You know, I can kind of see it,
Yeah.
I could sense it, right? And now I know, okay, let me step in just a little bit, not like I'm gonna do it for them, but I'm stepping just a little bit, help a little bit, so that they can feel a little bit more confident and get through this. And it may be me just let me do this part, or let me do these couple parts, you do the ends, right? So there's a win there. And then on a opposite way, um, if I make it too easy, you know, they're going to be bored, right? They're going to be like,
Mhm.
you know. So I want to find that just right challenge where it's like not too easy, but we're still challenging them to grow.
That's awesome. I love that. I think we could use that in business as well. Like, you gotta find that just right challenge where you're really pushing yourself, but not to the point of like burnout or overwhelm. That's awesome. Very good. Cool. So let's talk more about the business side of things. So what does your current process look like from like lead intake, therapy, and then ongoing care?
Well, that's a big one. Maybe break that one down a little bit for me. Where should
Sure,
we start?
kind of walk us through like the client journey. Like you have a lead come in for a client. What's the first thing? Like what's intake look like? And then how are they set up on a schedule? And then what does like follow up look like?
Okay, good question. So we have a little bit of system for it. So maybe that's why I didn't like come so clear. It's kind of happened over time. But anytime we get a client, we may get leads from different places. One is we work with the Department of Developmental Disabilities, and they have a bunch of kiddos who need services. Unfortunately, we need more therapists because there's so many kids that need services. But that's just kind of how that is. So we
Mm-hmm.
have a lot of leads that come directly from Department of Developmental Disabilities. Then we also will get like internet inquiries and phone call inquiries. So once we get someone on board, we let them know, hey, well, actually, let me backtrack. So we'll have a therapist, we have their schedule and their availability, and then we'll get the parent schedule availability. We find some that fits based off what they need. We find some that fits, then we go ahead and start the onboarding process where we'll get all the client's information. And then from there, we will send that information off to the therapist and they'll do the eval from there. And then from there, it's just ongoing. So some of the systems we have in place with that is I have a onboarding person. His name's Scott, and he'll do all the onboarding stuff with all our clients and make sure everybody's good to go. And then we've kind of incorporated some systems. One of them is called Airtable. I had a friend kind of introduced me to that,
Mm-hmm.
and that kind of keeps track of all our clients, our wait list, who is pending, where things are at. And there's like an ongoing little note. I can't think of the word, but no, it keeps track of everything. So that's kind of helped keep us organized over the past year. And then another tool we're using is what most clinics use is EMR.
Mm-hmm.
Some people probably don't use it, but I definitely recommend in today's world. I feel like everyone should have an EMR, a medical record system, where it keeps track of all our patients' data, soap notes, care plans, evals. And that's like, I feel like that's a must for therapy practice now.
Yeah. Awesome. That was great. That was a great way to break it down. Perfect. So, where in this process do you see things kind of slow down, or where does it become difficult, whether it's onboarding families or matching them with therapists or maintaining engagement over time? Do you see any like friction points that kind of it can become difficult?
I feel like every week is a refining process. If I think of specific examples as of late, one thing I want to try to incorporate, and I use a lot of GPT and AI to kind of help me get through this and work through these things, is when we get a client who calls in and says, hey, do you have a therapist available? In my head right now, because I know all my therapists, I know where everyone's at. I know a general idea of kind of, okay, they're in Tempe, they're in Mesa, right? As the business grows, and let's say we go from 20 therapists to 50, I may not be able to keep track of
Mm-hmm.
everybody. So not right now I'm working on, okay, how can I create a system or find a system that we're able to just plug in a zip code and availability, and it will kind of populate what therapists are available. So that's
Mm.
kind of something it's in the back burner right now, but that's something we're trying to incorporate. So that's one thing there. Let me see if I can think of another area of friction. I know there's a lot. It's just so many that come up. I don't know if I could think of
Yeah.
eh,
I know it's funny, like you said, how it changes week to week. It's like something comes up and you're like, oh, we need to fix that. And then also, like just as you grow and scale, to your point, as you get more therapists, you are going to need some kind of system that really matches them based on schedule and zip code. So I think that's a good direction to be headed as you think about scaling. So very smart. What part of growth right now depends heavily on you personally or on key team members, just in terms of growing, bringing more leads in? I know you said you get leads from a few different areas. Does any of that like fall primarily on you, or do you have like a someone that's actively going out and finding leads?
yeah, so we actually have a reverse problem of probably most places or most industries. And because there's so many kids that need services, our growth process involves finding therapists, finding good
Mm,
therapists. Um, so when I think of, I guess I'm gonna frame it from there, finding therapists when we talk about growth. And what I've been trying to do is as I've grown, I've tried Indeed and I've tried a couple little other things. I haven't had much success on that. I'm still a newer company compared to a couple bigger companies here. within the valley where I live. So I don't have a bunch of money to just throw at Indeed and whatnot. So it doesn't make sense
Right.
for me to do that. It was very unproductive. So I'm kind of realizing the best referrals come from word of mouth and building that reputation as I go. So I've been trying to say, okay, or I've been letting therapists know, hey, we have a referral fee. If you find another therapist, they end up working with us, they have a certain amount of clients, here's a referral, not referral fee, what would you call it? A referral bonus. We'll call it bonus that. Yeah, yeah, for them. So that's one way. I've also been doing just small little Google ads using
Mm,
SEO and whatnot and saying, okay, here's what we're looking for and doing stuff like that. So that's kind of there. Oh, and then also job fairs.
mm,
I'm kind of reaching out to different schools. And if there's job fairs, hey, can we show up to job fairs and get our name out there? Because when you're building small, you just don't have exposure.
right.
SEO is another thing I've learned from being in business is SEO is kind of like a big thing, but it doesn't have to be that big and complicated. Just ask AI to learn a little bit more
Hmm.
about it and little things like adjusting keywords and blogs, I feel like are making a difference where we're getting more exposure. So it's kind of multimodal way of trying to get our way out there. Obviously, we're using social media. I can't say that's a big return, but at least people, if they Google us, it's another SEO thing. People know more
Right.
about us. Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of like you have to look too. They might not have found you on social media, but once they find you, they're gonna find you on social media because they want to see what you're doing. So it's just like further like proof that you are a good company to work for or that you're doing like cool and innovative things in the space. So yeah, you have to kind of maintain those things. So that's great. It's great that you're taking such a multi-pronged approach to that. So for other practice owners that are listening, what's one operational lesson that you've learned the hard way?
It's funny, this kind of question, because I still feel new. I don't know if that ever goes away. So I was like, who am I to tell you? But there's definitely been a few, and then it's hard to kind of pinpoint one. One, okay, one is having a system and process. Every year we have to do renew a care plan, get it faxed to the doctor, have the doctor sign off, and then we have if we're working with Department of Developmental Disabilities, they will sign off on that, right? And go. So when it was small, it was kind of easy to keep track of. Now, like I said, we're using some different apps to kind of have a better tracking system. But a hard lesson that could have been worse is there was a few people who I didn't have tracked down. For some reason, I just forgot to put them in. I don't know what happened exactly, but their authorization had expired and it's like, "Oh, it's been a couple months," and that if you don't have the authorization, you don't get paid for that. So,
Yeah.
it happened at a small scale, but I imagine at a big scale, if you miss the authorization and you have so many visits and you're missing multiple, that's a lot of income, and
Mhm.
you don't get back paid for that, and you still gotta pay your therapist. So, that's like a little financial thing about having good systems in place to make sure everyone's tracked. And if you can add a point where you can add, not clients, but if you can add a team who's good at that, that's huge. And I know I'm a big picture thinker. I'm not a detailed person, so I can miss things easily. So adding people in your team who can complement your weaknesses is has been huge. So find those people who are detailed. Or if you're a detailed person, find maybe the big picture thinker who's able to kind
Right.
of like move things forward.
That's great. That's great advice. Really good advice. So, okay. So, as you look ahead, what does scaling this business look like for you? Does it look like more therapists, deeper services, something else, adding services?
Yeah, so if we're thinking of scaling, I think there's 2 ways that I could think about it. One would be, like, financially and numbers-wise, right? And then the other one is values, right? So if I was to think more like numbers, adding therapists is going to be the biggest way to scale, adding therapists so we can serve more clients with our community. But if we're thinking more like, qualitative and bring more value, I think it's continuing to do the podcast, continue to do more workshops, continue webinars, right? So how can I really be more involved in the community? I was recently talking to a family and that's the thing, I got to ask parents directly because I'm learning that sometimes I'm like, oh, this is going to be a great idea, but not practical. Like when we did the workshop, maybe it's not practical for the parents to come. So how can we ask family, okay, what is going to be practical for you? Maybe as we providing care while we do this workshop. One family's expressed to me that, hey, if we can have more inclusive activities that you run, where our kids can come, everyone can come. A day in a park, obviously I got to look at the safeguards as a business to make sure I protect it, but having more community events. So, big picture from a qualitative quality standpoint is really get involved in the community, and then growth from a numbers standpoint is adding more therapists so that we can serve more of our families.
Okay, awesome. Um, yeah, I think that's great. If so, what or do you have plans? Like, what are you looking to do? In I know you said You've got some LinkedIn out there. You're doing some SEO. Do you have any other additional plans to bring on more therapists besides those, like those and the referral fees? Do you have like a set like we offer this amount of a referral with your current therapist and system like in place for them, or is that kind of just a bonus that you do every now and then?
Yeah, so that's down the board. If any therapists are like, "Hey, I brought someone on. Okay, we're going to give you 300 for this referral, and as long as they take 3 clients," right? So that's kind of standard I have there. And then I don't know if you were asking me about the other things, but yeah, that's kind of like my set thing. That's had the biggest return, right? Because therapists talk about other therapists, or if they like working with you, they go and tell other people. I've kind of learned that
Right.
in the Google SEO. So that's kind of it's kind of simple right now, but it's kind of trying a little
Working.
thing to see what's working.
Yeah. And it sounds like it's working for you. So that's awesome. Okay. So looking forward, how do you see therapy evolving, especially with things like AI, home based care, more personalized treatment models?
All right, so that whole thing you said just kind of cut out. It's a
Okay.
little
Sorry.
blurry right now.
Just looking forward to the future. And as a whole industry, how do you see therapy evolving, especially with things like AI, home based care is expanding, and then also having more personalized treatment models? So, how do you see all of that evolving in the next, I don't know, like 3 to 5 years?
So next 3 to 5 years is going to be super unpredictable with AI
Yeah.
jobs. So I think AI is very beneficial. It could feel a little scary too. But I do think we're going a lot of us, and I feel like in every job sector, are going to really have to reevaluate what we bring to the table and how we use the tools. Could AI replace your job? Yes and no. If you're able to use AI to be a better therapist, and I'll speak for therapists, right? If you're able to use AI to be a better therapist and have AI do those things that are kind of more, what's the word, more redundant in a way that's
Hmm.
just more just
Trivial.
busy
Yeah.
work. Yeah, that is a great way to use AI. But if you have AI just go and do the thinking for you, I don't know about that. Like, have it, you guys are going to work together to brainstorm things. But if we kind of have AI replace us, what we're able to bring to the table as being human, right? Bringing our best selves, that's where we're the most powerful, right? As a therapist, like
Hmm.
we really bond with our kids. I don't know if AI could do that. Maybe it can, but I don't know. I don't think it could do it like a human can. I don't think anything replaces that human touch. So I think when therapists and people hear AI, it's like, oh man, it's a little scary because it replaces our jobs. But how can you be different from AI? And I think the biggest thing is being human. And people more than ever are striving and wanting that human connection. I love that we can technology is great for things like this because we can do this, but at the end of the day, we still want that human connection. You could talk to AI as a podcast. No one wants to listen to that.
No.
So
Yeah.
so I think like having that there is one thing that I kind of got into a rant about the AI stuff, but I think that is it. And as we scale as far as therapy goes, I don't want to get political, but when we think about funding and stuff, we're going to have to rethink about maybe some of the models of how we provide therapy. And is it sustainable? Insurance rates aren't really going up. So it's like, I think, I don't know the answer, but I think we just feel like how can we bring more value while still being compensated with the rates that are kind of happening right now?
Right. No, that's a very valid point as the landscape has shifted significantly recently. So, okay, very cool. So before we wrap up, we're going to do a lightning round. So these are quick short answers. There's only 4 questions. So get hyped. Are you ready?
All
All
right,
right.
quick answers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. What's one myth about therapy or developmental support that you would love to eliminate?
One myth about therapy developmental support that I'd like to eliminate. Oh man, maybe I should have some prep for this one.
It's all right. Take your time. It's lightning, but
Okay,
you
well,
can pause because
yeah,
it's edited.
yeah. Okay, maybe we'll go with that. Therapy happens overnight. Therapy is a process, whether it's with kids or with adults, and it takes a collaborative approach. So not just you doing it, but the client and family being involved. So I think just having instant change is going to happen. It's good collaborating. We gotta be patient with our kids and our families.
Perfect. Love it. Okay. What is one habit that keeps you grounded as a founder?
One habit that keeps me grounded, I think, is one of my strengths. Is I feel like I'm a good listener and I'm good at hearing different perspectives and staying objective. So I think that is huge. Not that I don't have emotions, but I think staying objective and hearing both sides of the story and coming to a conclusion based off objective data is valid.
That's awesome. And then what gives you the most hope when you think about the families you serve?
I think what gives me the most hope is I feel like I'm an optimistic person, and I see a lot of my families that they're trying, they're doing their best, and I think as long as they keep that mindset and they really embrace their child and not feel like their kids got to conform to societal standards, like I love that, right? And if somebody's going to be, they may not have a traditional job, but they still be who they are and love what they do. So I think that is huge. Seeing the parents support their kids for who they are.
Great. I love that. And then the last one, super easy. Where can people find you and learn more about Pure Hearts Therapy?
Okay, I don't want to give people too many things, but the biggest thing is going to pureheartstherapy.com, my website. And on there, I have information about podcasts, I have resources, and everything else that they need to know,
Perfect.
and socials.
Okay, awesome. All right, we'll include a link to that and make sure we direct people there. Well, Brian, this has been a really great conversation. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us. Honestly, there's a lot here, and I'm already seeing a few areas where you've really kind of changed the landscape on things. So I appreciate you taking the time to talk with us and share about your program and your neurodiversity inclusion. I think is really giving kids a space to grow in a really positive way. And so thanks. Thanks for sharing that with us. So to everyone listening, if you got value from this episode, make sure to subscribe and share it with someone who needs it. And to connect with Brian to learn more about the work he's doing, we will include that in the show notes. As always, innovation creates possibility, implementation turns it into growth. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.